Robinho, real name Robson de Souza, is one of the most gifted footballers to have burst onto the scene during this millennium. At the age of only 15, Pelé had already identified Robinho as being his heir apparent for both Santos and the Brazilian national team. And by 18, Robinho was already starting to justify that degree of praise, inspiring Santos to their first Campeonato Brasileiro Serie A title since Pelé played for the club. When he left Santos, in a £20 million transfer to Real Madrid in 2005, aged 21, Robinho predicted that he would win the Ballon d'Or within the next 2 to 3 years. 16 years later, Robinho is now a free agent, having been convicted in absentia of sexual assault in Italy for his part in the gang rape of a 22-year-old Albanian woman at a nightclub in Milan. Between his sensational breakout and disgraceful demise, the Brazilian also became the most expensive signing in the history of the British game, when he joined Manchester City from Real Madrid in September 2008 for a fee of £32.5 million. Many of you will recall that Sheikh Mansour's takeover at Manchester City was completed right at the end of the 2008 summer transfer window, and it was clear for all to see that the club was desperate to land a marquee signing. A myriad of superstars were linked, but in the end it was Robinho, who had been on the verge of signing for Chelsea, who suddenly turned up at the City of Manchester Stadium. Though Robinho wouldn't be the man to inspire Manchester City to greatness, his signing was symbolic more than anything else, representing a metaphorical passing over of the baton from Chelsea to Man City in terms of the new big spenders with a billionaire owner in the Premier League. So in today's video, we are going to take a look at every forward signed by Manchester City since Robinho's arrival in September 2008. Or I suppose, if you wanted an alternative title, every forward signed by the Manchester club under the ownership of Sheikh Mansour, everyone's favourite member of Abu Dhabi's ruling royal family. Craig Bellamy, Anderlecht under-21 manager. Manchester City's first forward brought in post-Robinho, and only the club's second of the Sheikh Mansour era, the club went down quite a different route with Craig Bellamy. Less of a global superstar than Robinho, but more tried and tested in the Premier League, Bellamy was brought in following the appointment of Mark Hughes, with the two previously having worked well together for a couple of seasons at Blackburn Rovers. Bellamy joined the Citizens for £14 million from West Ham United, but unfortunately for him, Hughes didn't keep his job for long. Bellamy enjoyed some memorable moments during his 18 months with the club, including a brace in the Manchester derby. But just 6 months after Mark Hughes was replaced by Roberto Mancini, Bellamy joined his boy club Cardiff City on loan in the Championship. The pacey, versatile and aggressive little frontman hung up his boots in South Wales in 2014. And he now works alongside his old Citizens teammate Vincent Kompany as the head coach of Anderlecht's under-21 side. Roque Santa Cruz, Club Olimpia. Roque Santa Cruz is almost the same age as Craig Bellamy, but whilst the Welshman hung up his boots more than 7 years ago, Santa Cruz is still going strong back in his homeland. A legend of the Paraguayan game, having won the last of his 112 caps for the South American nation in 2016, Santa Cruz was another one of Mark Hughes' old allies who was brought to Man City by his former boss. The Paraguayan had been a roaring success for Hughes at Blackburn, where he was signed for just £3.5 million from Bayern Munich and took the Premier League by storm. His time in Manchester wouldn't be quite so joyous, as Santa Cruz set the club back £17.5 million, he scored just 3 goals in 20 Premier League games, and was basically out of the door the second that Mark Hughes lost his job. Stints at Real Betis, Malaga and Cruz Azul followed before the now 40-year-old headed back to where it all began, his boyhood club, Club Olimpia, where he has since scored 75 goals in 178 games. Carlos Tevez, free agent. A 37-year-old South American free agent, just like Robinho, Carlos Tevez's third stint at Boca Juniors came to an end just 3 months ago, but the Argentine says that he's not done just yet. A bullish street fighter of a footballer who could wrestle with defenders but could also skip past them and whip a ball into the top corner, Tevez's introduction to the English game came via a highly controversial move to West Ham United. It was Tevez's third-party ownership rights that prevented Manchester United from signing him permanently after 2 years at Old Trafford, but the free-spending Citizens had no such reservations, bringing Tevez to the Etihad in the summer of 2009. From refusing to come off the bench against Bayern Munich to winning the Premier League Golden Boot, Tevez's time at Man City was nothing if not entertaining, but his return to the fold in the club's first Premier League title win of the Sheikh Mansour era proved to be pivotal. EMMANUEL ADEBAYOR, free agent. A sensational forward who was forever accused of lacking discipline and application, at his best, EMMANUEL ADEBAYOR was quick, tall, technical, and lethal. He bagged 30 goals in his penultimate season with Arsenal before sealing a £25 million move to the Etihad in the summer of 2009, which, let's just say, didn't make him particularly popular among Arsenal fans. Famously, when Adebayor found the back of the net against his former club for his new employers, he took no prisoners with his celebration. That was one of only 19 goals that the Togolese marksman bagged in 45 games for the Citizens though, where he also had loan spells at Tottenham Hotspur and Real Madrid. Adebayor has since played for Crystal Palace, Istanbul Başakşehir, Kayserispor, and for his most recent club, Club Olimpia, in Paraguay, where he very briefly played alongside Roque Santa Cruz, playing 4 games for the club and receiving a red card in the last of those 4 for kicking an opponent in the head. Also aged 37, like Tevez and Robinho, Adebayor is yet to officially retire from the sport. Mario Balotelli, Adana Demirspor. Much like Robinho, Mario Balotelli was a teenage starlet who ultimately failed to come good on his enormous potential, and who left Manchester City in a move to AC Milan. The Citizens certainly haven't shied away from signing centre-forwards with colourful personalities, and Balotelli's time at the Etihad was even more eventful than Tevez's. When he wasn't setting off fireworks in his bathroom or scrapping with Roberto Mancini in training, Balotelli did put in some vintage performances in the Premier League, providing us with some unforgettable moments. If he were just maybe 10% more level-headed, Balotelli might have become one of the best strikers in the world. Instead, he is playing for Turkish Super League new boys Adana Demirspor now, where he plays alongside former Championship marksman Brit Asombalonga, having spent last season playing in Serie B for Monza. Edin Dzeko, Inter Milan. A man who made a move this summer in a transfer triangle domino effect, as Inter Milan looked to cut costs. It was Tammy Abraham's move to Roma that allowed Chelsea to sign Romelu Lukaku, and Lukaku's selling club, Inter Milan, to sign Edin Dzeko from Abraham's new club Roma. Edin Dzeko is one of very few men to have scored prolifically in all of Europe's current top 4 ranked leagues, and though he was often overshadowed by the staggering brilliance of Sergio Aguero at the Etihad, the Bosnian still banged in 72 goals in 189 games across 4.5 seasons with the club. A fantastic all-round centre-forward, Dzeko might be 35 now, and he will have a hard time replacing Romelu Lukaku's goal contributions, but the fact that a club of Inter Milan's standing still wanted him at that age is a mark of his talent and of his longevity. Sergio Aguero, Barcelona. Speaking of the devil, Sergio Aguero was by far the longest-serving Manchester City striker in this list up until the summer just gone, when his contract at the Etihad came to an end and he signed for Barcelona. It was a dream move for Aguero at the age of 33, joining one of the biggest clubs in the world, where he would play alongside his old pal Lionel Messi. Or so he thought. Aguero spent exactly a decade at Manchester City, where he scored 260 goals in 390 games, becoming the club's all-time top scorer. At times, Aguero really was unplayable. I actually thought his peak was just a couple of years ago, when he was still hitting 30 plus goals, but also seemed so athletic, permanently involved, and such a willing runner. He is yet to play for Barcelona, currently out injured, and expected to be sidelined for at least the next 6 weeks. Alvaro Negredo, Cadiz. I can never mention Alvaro Negredo on this channel without mentioning Hull City. It's like some kind of compulsion, since the Spaniard is said to have come very close to joining the Tigers in 2009, but instead, he opted to join Sevilla, and we ended up signing a trio of donkeys. Alright, donkeys is a bit harsh, but they weren't great. Negredo did make a move to England 4 years later, but it was the dark and dreary streets of Manchester, rather than the tropical paradise of Hull, that greeted him upon his arrival. Naturally, his first goal for the Citizens was against us, as if we hadn't already suffered enough. Negredo was very prolific for Manchester City in the cup competitions, though a little less so in the league, and he only lasted a single season at the club. He has since played for a handful of clubs, but aged 36, Negredo returned to Spain and to La Liga following 2 seasons in the Middle East by signing for Cadiz in 2020. Stevan Jovetic, Hertha Berlin. Stevan Jovetic looked capable of becoming one of the best players in Europe when he first broke through at Partizan Belgrade, and though some of you might think that I'm mad, I still think that he could have been if it wasn't for injuries. A clever and gifted operator who could score and create goals playing out wide as a number 10 or as a 9, Jovetic has twice ruptured his cruciate ligaments alongside a string of other setbacks. His time in England was also brief, just 2 seasons, in which he scored 11 goals in 44 games. Jovetic left his former club Monaco to join Hertha Berlin in the recent summer transfer window, and with his goal against Cologne early this season, Jovetic became only the second player ever to score in all 5 of Europe's traditional top 5 leagues. Though that stat was somewhat spoilt by Portugal very narrowly leapfrogging France in UEFA's top flight league coefficients. Wilfried Bony, free agent. I'm sure Wilfried Bony's move to Manchester City made him a very wealthy man, and I do not begrudge him for making it, from both a personal and professional perspective. But boy oh boy, did it wreck his career like a sledgehammer going straight through a Victorian-era stained glass window. Bony scored goals like it was second nature to him at all of his previous clubs, most notably Swansea City, where he had a fantastic record for a newcomer to the English game. He set Manchester City back between £25 to £28 million, which would work out as being roughly £5 million per Premier League goal for the club, discounting his no doubt considerable wages as well. Aged 32, Bony has now been without a club for close to a year, having made only 11 appearances in 10 months for his former club, Al Ittihad, in Saudi Arabia. If you could get him firing again, I've little doubt that he could do a job for someone, but the longer he goes without a club, the more difficult it will get. Nolito, Celta Vigo. Pep Guardiola's joint first signing after being appointed as Manchester City boss, Nolito joined the Citizens from Celta Vigo for £13.3 million on the same day that Ilkay Gundogan arrived at the club. Whilst Gundogan is still starring for Manchester City now and is one of Pep Guardiola's key men, Nolito left the club more than 4 years ago. Guardiola clearly was not sufficiently convinced, and the arrival of Bernardo Silva was perhaps the final nail in his Mancunian coffin. Nolito joined Sevilla for half what Man City had paid for him, and following 2.5 years in Seville, where he picked up a pretty nasty injury, the 34-year-old returned to Celta in January 2020. Marlos Moreno, Kortrijk. The first player in this video who is still contracted to Manchester City, it is extremely difficult to see Marlos Moreno actually having a long-term future in the Citizens first team. Signed for just shy of £5 million from Atlético Nacional in the summer of 2016, the young Colombian international is yet to make a competitive appearance at the Etihad. He has had loan spells with the likes of Deportivo La Coruña, Girona, Flamengo, Santos Laguna, Portimonense and Lamel since then, failing to stamp down any real authority with any of them. And now, aged 24, the nomadic and diminutive forward is spending this season back on loan in Belgium, this time with Kortrijk, who are owned by Cardiff City owner Vincent Tan. Gabriel Jesus, Manchester City. Our first inclusion who is not only still at the Etihad, but is actually playing first-team football for Pep Guardiola. I must be one of the few people who thinks that Gabriel Jesus is good enough to be Manchester City's number 9, even if they didn't bring in a Harry Kane or Erling Haaland. Jesus is probably not yet capable of scoring 30-plus goals a season, but I think he's comfortably capable of hitting 20-plus. He has already done that twice in all competitions at Manchester City as a rotation option, and his all-round game and contribution is enormous. He could no doubt do with some support, with Liam Delap not yet seemingly fully trusted, but I like him a lot. Ben Knight, CREWE Alexandra. A young centre-forward who might be unfamiliar to a lot of our viewers, perhaps even some Manchester City fans, especially if they missed the 2021 Community Shield. Ben Knight came on as a 74th minute substitute in that game in place of Ferran Torres, as Man City were defeated by Leicester City. That was Knight's one and only senior appearance for the club to date, having arrived from Ipswich Town for £750,000 in 2018, and he is still only 19 years old. Knight has gone out on loan for the first time this season, joining CREWE ALEXANDRA in League One. JAYDEN BRAAF, UDINESE. Another teenage forward currently out on loan from Manchester City, the standard is so high at the Etihad that the chance of many of these players establishing themselves in the first team at the club is slim, but I am told that JAYDEN BRAAF is very highly thought of. Age 19, and also signed in 2018 from PSV in Braaf's case, the Dutch youth team international joined Udinese on loan last season, but suffered a horrible injury not long after his arrival. He has stayed on in Udine this season and is expected to be back in action before long. Morgan Rogers, AFC Bournemouth. Signed by Manchester City from West Bromwich Albion in 2019 after making one senior appearance for the Baggies and having impressed in an FA Youth Cup game against Man City, Morgan Rogers is yet to make his senior debut for the Citizens. Having only recently turned 19, Rogers spent last season on loan at Lincoln City in League One, but the England under-20 international has now stepped up to life in the Championship with Bournemouth, which is a reflection of the high regard that he is held in. Liam Delap, Manchester City. Mentioned only a moment ago, of all the young centre-forwards at Manchester City, Liam Delap is the one who the club feel most confident about being able to step up to the level required. A lot of Man City fans want to see Delap thrown into the action more often, but as with Phil Foden a few years ago, it appears as though the Citizens want to remain patient. The son of Stoke City legend Rory Delap, Liam is a big, mobile frontman who has been incredibly prolific for both England and Man City at youth team level, and he'll be desperate to get some more first-team opportunities under his belt this season, still aged only 18. Slobodan Tedic, PEC Zwolle. A Yugoslav and Serbian named Slobodan, but not to be confused with the notorious war criminal Slobodan Milosevic, Slobodan Tedic is a 6'3" 21-year-old striker, rather than a deceased genocidal warlord. Signed by Man City in January 2020 from Serbian outfit Kuckaricki, where he had already played more than 60 games, Tedic subsequently spent 6 months back on loan with his former club. This season and last, he has stepped it up a notch, joining Eredivisie outfit PEC Zwolle, where he has already made 3 appearances this season. Pablo Moreno, Girona. Manchester City have 3 players on loan at Segunda Division promotion hopeful Girona this season, who the City Football Group owns 47% of, making them the club's largest shareholders. Pablo Moreno is one such player, the 19-year-old actually hailing from Spain and previously having played in Catalonia with the La Masia youth ranks. Signed by Manchester City from Juventus in a swap deal in 2020, this is Moreno's second season on loan at Girona, and he'll be looking to build on the 2 league goals that he bagged last time around. Nahuel Bustos, Girona. Making it a Girona duo in quick succession, Nahuel Bustos is a little older than some of our other recent inclusions, aged 23. Bustos was brought to the Etihad following an impressive breakthrough at Talleres, supposedly setting the Citizens back close to £6 million. As with Moreno, he only managed 1 league goal for Girona last season, and even more so than him, bearing in mind his age, the Argentine will be keen to make much more of an impact this season. Kaiki, Fluminense. Our last full inclusion, and quite possibly the most exciting, Brazilian teenage sensation Kaiki has earned quite the reputation for himself in Brazil, even at the age of 18. There are concerns within Brazil, often quite legitimate, that teenagers leave the league and the country too young, failing to get the required game time and consistency elsewhere. Quick and tremendously gifted on the ball, Kaiki is left-footed but tends to play on the right of a front 3, and has proved that he can score goals with either foot at youth level. He is still with Fluminense right now, despite having agreed a deal to join the Citizens, and he will link up with his new teammates in January in a deal worth £9 million. Those are the players that I chose to feature under the auspices of forward, which is a somewhat ambiguous term, and I set quite a high threshold for meeting it, which meant leaving out the likes of Leroy Sané and Raheem Sterling. Perhaps The most notable exemption is Ferran Torres though, given Pep Guardiola's increasing fondness for playing him in a central role. But given that he is still at Man City, it didn't seem like a particularly significant omission. A quick word also for Kelechi Iheanacho, who missed out on the grounds that he was signed as a youth team player and not as a first team player, but there you go. Probably most of you know that he's at Leicester City. So that is it for today's video. Thank you all very much as ever for watching. Hit the like button if you enjoyed it, let me know your thoughts down below in the comments, and make sure you're subscribed and have notifications turned on for HITC Sevens. You can also find me on Twitter and on Instagram via the username @HITC Sevens on both, should you wish to do so.